Good morning. Today is, I believe, December 30th. Let me make sure the camera's on good. And we are in the northern vigilance area, northeastern vigilance area today, and we are going to try very hard not to turn this into like some kind of a year in review, because those things are like my biggest peeve this time of year. It's about 38 degrees. You got a light rain going in, so it's kind of like moist and raw out here today. And other than that, we're having a mild winter so far, which is good and bad. We're going to make our way through and take a look for a sign. And this is also the area where we had that pulsating sound about this time last year. So we are kind of on alert for that too. And far as any news from the community, it's been kind of quiet, I think, because of the holidays and all. But we're going to share whatever thoughts pop in our head as well and round out the year. And then next year we'll see what comes. And we'll go from there. Thanks. We're at this fishing pond. You can see, I do fish here, so yeah. And conceivably can legally for the next 2 days until I have to renew my license, but that's how that works. You can see it's raining. It's not turning into less rain. It's turning into more rain. I think I have found hunter's litter over here, which is annoying. Let's come over and see what that is. Since orange is not a naturally occurring color out here, what do we have here? It looks like one of those thermal blanket things, not knowing who's been near it. I'm not going to touch it. For all you know, somebody might come back for it. It's not mine, so you leave shit alone. Although you're a scumbag for littering in the woods, bitch. Anyway, so what occurs to me, rather than doing a year in review, mainly because it was pretty quiet this year, we had, what happened? Did we have any activity? We had the pulsating sound in this area. Vermont was largely quiet for the most part, although when I was out with a gentleman from the CARC group, technically BFRO as well, we did have something drop a log or stick, or not a stick, like something like this big, and run off. I'm trying to remember if I had any. I think I did have a couple of legacy track finds up there too. So it remains an active area. Just some years are quieter than others, and the family group I've encountered up there has seemingly moved on out of the area. So I'll either need to change up my strategy this year. Well, what is to be this year, or look at other areas and pick up their trail or whatever. There's also number 3, who technically, if you include the youngster from the family group, would be number 4, but he was given the mantle of number 3. So number 3 is to the northeast and possibly still remains in the relative area, although he did not show himself or any sign of him this year. There's a lot of this stuff down. There's been a lot of wind lately, so you'll probably see some of that as we walk through here. So the one thing I am going to announce, it would not be a trip out if you didn't see the obligatory moose poo, or whatever the fuck that is. That might not be moose poo. Might be the leavings of a bear. I'll leave that to you to decide. But it's poo. It ain't people poo, so it's some other poo. But it's poo. Anyway, the announcement I do want to make this week, and I will begin with a disclaimer. I don't know if this is going to come across as a controversial move or not. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't care. I think it's justified. And I'm not just going to do it. I'm announcing it now. So if you pay attention to myself and my efforts, understand this. Those that know me probably are aware that from 2003 through 2014, I was one of the original and probably most active members of the Northeastern Sasquatch Research Association, aka NESRA. After having a couple of creative differences with the people who ultimately ground the group as it was at the time to a halt, let's call it what it was, did nothing with it and left it in a state of limbo, it has kind of been in that state since. This is not intended as an act of revisionism or anything, but there are two, in my mind, indisputable facts regarding the legacy of NESRA. Number one, I was the last democratically elected member to the board of directors before they abandoned that and became a bit more of what I would call a cabal, making decisions for the group with no representation from the membership, which is a large part of why we had a parting of the ways. They had just suddenly decided, well, we're it, despite the fact I was the one maintaining the website and doing the recruiting and following up on all the investigative reports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the NESN incident database is the rescued version of the prior NESRA incident database and says so right on the website, now under new management. But the rethinking of this, if only for some kind of a branding consideration, is the fact that the management never really changed. And that's kind of where I'm going with this. For all intent and purpose, to the chagrin maybe of one or two people, NESRA and NESN are the same thing. That is the announcement. Since the people I disagreed with unfortunately allowed the name to fall by the wayside and do nothing with it, effectively becoming absentee landlords, the truth of the matter is this, boys and girls. The surviving members of NESRA, one of whom contacted me just yesterday, when they contact people thinking of NESRA, I'm the one who gets the call. That is the reality of this. I am laying claim to their legacy and their history, and I already have control and ownership of what I'll call their cyber presence, their digital assets, because they basically abandoned them. And not wanting to see 10 years of research go down the toilet at the time, I didn't let that happen. I just heard something to my left, and I will continue to monitor that with my ears. So, effectively, NESN is the inherited legacy of NESRA. And what I intend to do, for people that have remembered that, dig the funky tree. That's why I like it out here. When people think of the name NESRA, I am going to see if it's possible to take up the mantle of the domain names that were known with the other group before. That's the part I'm announcing. So if anyone has issue with this, it's not like I just went and did this. I'm announcing my intention to do it. And therefore, the teamnesra.net domain name, should it still be out there. The reason why I say this tentatively is because there are other NESRAs out there that don't do Bigfoot. I know there's an engineering firm. There was at least a snowmobiling team, a trail maintenance team. There's multiple instances of the NESRA name, where NESN, I'm not aware of another one. But if these domain names are available because they have been abandoned, I am pointing them to the NESN site, and that's how that's going to be. I'm claiming the history because that history is my history as much as anyone else's. And since I don't see anyone doing anything under the Nezra name, hello, Hunter Shotgun Shell, it's going to be integrated into the Nezin situation, and we are returning the management model that Nezra fell away from to its original roots by continuing the Nezin operating model, which is that of a collaborative network of people around the region and not some HOA with Bigfoot as their apparent purpose, where you have these pointless meetings every month where people make decisions and nobody knows the decisions being made because they weren't sharing information with anyone. Which, when you think about it, kind of thoroughly defeats the logic of having a board of directors in the first place. More legacy poo. There are... Something was eating grass. You can see grasses and things in there, so... I don't know if that's a moose or not, but it's something that was definitely eating a lot of grass and things. Or maybe this stuff. That mossy stuff. I'll have to Google that to kind of confirm or deny that. So, that is going to happen in some form. And I'm announcing it for the sake of transparency, if nothing else. And anyone out there who is still actively pursuing the subject and was a member of Nezra, if you choose to still associate with the name and be a member, you're welcome to return to the fold, and that is also there too. This is not an adversarial move. This is meant to be an inclusive move. It also looks like that guy took his blind, the hunter took his blind down, considering he only got 2 more days of deer season anyway. Today and tomorrow. If you're not out here today, then you got like tomorrow, and then that's it. No, it's right there. I take that back. We're a little bit further up the hill today. Still there. But that is going to happen. It's something that probably should have happened before, and the reason I say that, when I was forming Nezin in 2014, and I did a joint night operation with members of the then forming Squatchachusetts group before they kind of went more their own way and settled into their own way of doing things and set up camp under the BFRO mantle. Not that I have issue with that. Like I said, the BFRO is a mixed bag of people. Some are better than others, but I know some people in the group that are quality people. Then you have Chris Noel. But anyway, without getting all pointlessly adversarial in this commentary, back in 2014, just to kind of raise the issue, when I met up with a person, Tim Vogel, who's one of the better members of Squatchachusetts because he is, or at least was at the time, a survival training guide, and a very knowledgeable person in the outdoors and a good person to head out with if you ever have the chance. He identified me as being Nezra. So even after kind of having walked away, a group of people that were slowly destroying the group's name at the time, I was the face to the group. And I'm not saying this to brag. I'm not trying to pump my chest up or anything like that. But the fact of the matter was, because I was the one out there doing the recruiting, I was the one out there, and still to a large degree am the one out there in New York, in Vermont, in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, and in Connecticut. Not so much in Massachusetts because that's more Squatchachusetts territory, but in Connecticut and occasionally in Rhode Island, where the activity takes me. I am the face of that group, and therefore I am the face of that legacy. And I've kind of built more under the Nezin name, but for all intent and purpose, with them not doing anything with it, the argument could be made that it is the same group. Just with different, with an evolved membership, because the people who were there, one of them I've kept in touch with, and his state of health doesn't allow him back out into the woods anymore, so I'm going to consider his participation in the group functionally defunct. The other person and I'll put it this way, I'll be diplomatic. Lives in a location that makes getting into the field problematic, and therefore he's not a worthy holder of the name of the group. And therefore, and if I'm taking over the mantle, is not considered to be a member of the group, that's Moose Poo, as is that. He is not a member. He's not an active member of the group. Anyone else that is wanting to is welcome to. He is free to do whatever he wants, but he can go hook up with the corrupted version of the ABS or something if they're still active. I'd be curious to see what their state of being is after the whole debacle with the photo they tried to steal in 2013. It's sad that nothing is really of significance has happened in the time since then. But we're going to try to get more active. And in the new year, this is kind of my resolution. In the local area like this, we'll try to get some trail cams out. We'll be on and we'll do video. For those that don't like all that, you're in the age of video now, so suck it up. We will be out. I mean, I do pattern sweeps right now where I'm coming out and checking for sign. The conditions are not ideal, but it's been my observation that when you do get a possible hit in this region, it's with your ears, unless you're on a mud flat like surface where you find tracks, which is why you look there. But the only major mud flat in here is the road over that way, and that's going to have a lot of boot prints on it. So that's what's going on. With a little context, like I said, the one guy from then Squatchachusetts had been a member of Nezra, and if he wanted to have a dual membership but keep Nezin business within Nezin, he's welcome to. But the point of the matter is that I'm going to have to think how we did this, because when we first set up Nezin before my co-founder passed away, rest in peace, Dan, he was kind of moving the group into a organized model, and another member, Corey O'Leary, had made the argument for loosening the structure up, which I agreed with a little bit more, mainly just because the one defunct thing where a lot of people left Nezra in that 2013, 2014 time frame, things had gotten just ridiculously formal for no reason. They had gotten to a rut where they were basically only going out twice a year with no real sense of following up on things. And I'm sorry, that just doesn't cut it. That doesn't. If you're going to be a research group, you need to be out researching and following up on reports and things of this nature. And the problem with that, and this is a commentary on the nature of the times, is with all the advent of social media and Bigfoot hoaxing, lying sacks of crap on YouTube, among other platforms, aside from just the woo invasion, it's gotten messy. So we do still follow up reports, but we are selective because there's a lot of woo crap out there. And if somebody can show me something cloaking or mind speaking or something like that, great. We do have a hunter on the Massachusetts side over to my right. But from the muffled sound of the gunshot, it's off in the distance a ways. But, and it was definitely a gun. He's definitely not a bow hunter. Anyway, we are going to do that. My own pursuit, as I said, of furthering my embracing of things that enhance my search for the truth of this mystery is I've taken a forestry course to begin a process of becoming more learned in that field of expertise. And an interesting side note on that is that for anyone who has ever doubted the existence of what could be called either coy wolves or coy dogs, I find it interesting that the forestry course comes right out and freely admits that wolves and coyotes have hybridized. They make no effort to deny the existence of coy wolves and coy dogs in the Northeast. The more scientific term is perhaps the northeastern coyote, and yes, they are still, for all intent and purpose, more coyote than they're not, but they're also sluts. There's a western segment of the population that came east after somewhere along the lines interbreeding with timber wolves. A little known fact, in the southeast, they're actually driving the red wolf, a subspecies of wolf, to extinction, not by killing them off, but by basically fucking them out of existence. Basically, they're breeding with them, and they're basically just absorbing the gene pool and making them less and less. And I mean, basically, that's the theory of what Cro-Magnons did to the Neanderthals. We didn't wipe them out; we just bred them out. Because everyone still has some element of Neanderthal genes in them somewhere. But we bred them out of existence. I mean, that can happen too. Kind of like more of a natural selection thing. And that is just an interesting side note that has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but that is what is old is new, and what is new is old again, because the merger of the two names is effectively going to be the established legacy of Nez. And we are claiming the history of Nezra because as much as the membership at the time did good work for a while, they lost sight of the mission and it became more about organizational politics. And that is why the association has become a network, because in a looser structure, people have more say in what they do and don't do and how they do it. And the legitness or lack thereof is in the results they get or don't. Myself included, no one's exempt from that. And again, I hope he's doing better, but I'll even throw this all the way up to Jeff Meldrum. It's like, yes, he has scientific credentials. And yes, he is actually a real primatologist, so he knows of what he speaks. Yeah, where's the body? Where's the specimen? Where's the proof, though? He's looking like everybody else is. So, it ain't a competition, but it is an ongoing effort. And at this stage of my own evolution of thought on the subject, I might actually be prone to think it doesn't exist had I not actually seen them on 3 different occasions. And that's where you can't get past that. I saw something. And it was not a person. It was not a person. It was not. And bears don't run on 2 legs. They can walk for short periods, but they don't sprint in an almost human-like fashion. Although they don't pump their arms. They swing their arms to their sides in a weird running gait. It's kind of a sight to see, but it makes me think that they are, and that is from wind. That's not a freaking Bigfootery thing until proven otherwise. Although it wouldn't hurt to just check it over for any obvious hair samples or not, but 1, I don't see any, and 2, that's a little bit of a, that would make the bitch probably about 9 feet tall doing that. I don't know whether I want to meet a 9-footer out here, but for all the claims of people saying they've seen them, the ones I saw were actually more in the 6.5-foot range or so. I don't think the northeastern ones are these big 8-foot tall giants. I think they're a bit smaller. They're bigger than people, but not by as much as people would think. That being said, that's what's going on right now, and I don't have the largest YouTube following, so I don't know how many people this is going to come across, but I do intend to do this, and I consider it a completely on the up and up move to do, because quite honestly, it's been sitting there dormant for, well, since 2016 for all intent and purpose. And if the group is not going to, if the group members that were there aren't going to do anything with it, there are active efforts in the Northeast. And again, I was the last democratically elected member of the board, which is a vote of confidence by the membership at the time. And that legacy has existed through the formation of NESN. They are functionally the same group. And the people that were sitting there and having their meetings or doing whatever the hell they're doing for the better part of a year or so, they dropped the ball and therefore abandoned the name in all intent and purpose. I don't know if I'll get flack for it. I don't know. If I'm being honest, I don't care. That's how I feel about it, and that's going to happen. If the domain name is available, I'm taking it. And it will lead to the rightful place where it's gone, and that is where the network has taken over for the association, because the association out-evolved itself as far as being useful. It's just not going to stop raining, is it? Oh well. Oddly enough, it's not that cold, despite the fact that the rain is trying to be a poop. I'm going to take a segment break right now, because that's mainly all I have, and I'll see if there's anything else that occurs to me. So, that's the thing. NESN, NESRA, same thing. And according to the Fish and Game and the Forestry Service, yeah, koi wolves and koi dogs are very real. They do exist, and yes, I've seen one. Well, I've seen more than one. Their tracks are different. They look slightly different than coyotes. They are bigger by about probably between 10 and 15 pounds. And they have bigger necks and muzzles. Not by a lot. It's a subtle thing, but they are bigger. And they have shorter tails that are fluffier than that of a coyote by a subtle degree too. But they are hybridizing, and they are probably the future of canid predators in the Northeast. They are a bit more social. That's probably their one major difference from coyotes. Coyotes tend to be, when you say a coyote pack, you're talking about a mated pair and their pups. So it's more like a family unit. But koi wolves seem to be a little more social, at least in the winter, at least in past years when it got cold about January, February. Not that it's really that cold right now, but the deer started getting weaker because they were working harder to find food. And there's a place, where is it? That-a-way, for lack of a better word, where there's an old nature reclaimed chimney base, and for several years in a row, it's like the coyotes would use that to corner some deer, because you always found deer bones there. Probably around late February, March, the coyotes had made their venison dinner, make its last stand there, only to be chowed upon, which is how nature plays out. So that's it for now. We're going to take a segment break and see if there's, actually try to look for some sign around here, do a sweep through here, and then God forbid something happens, we'll come back and figure out about that. And we'll go from there. Thanks. A thought did occur to me in that in the kind of continuing on the New Year's resolution trend, the need to lend a louder counter voice to the bullshit, essentially. The people that are pushing the woo and the exploiters. The reason I say this, I touched on this in a video last week, and I'm going to kind of reiterate. It's kind of a disturbing trend, if that's what it is. The exploiters and the people pushing the woo. I came across a Facebook group called Squatchland. And interestingly enough, the Coalition for Malignant Narcissism and Bigfoot, they call themselves critical thinkers. I call them what they are, but they've evolved over time from critical thinkers to straight up scofftics, but they have always been a public group, as far as I know. And you're able to read their day-to-day things as a guest just because they're a public group. But they have recently gone private or something. And part of the reason why, I wonder, I actually kind of came across Squatchland 2, and they are the worst of the worst offenders with the woo-related stuff. They're nothing but blurry photos and pareidolia and this lovely kind of BS. And they, or the thread I hit upon, though, was them actively, seemingly planning an organized drive at censoring the coalition. And I've actually seen this happen to the Tall Ones podcast on YouTube, where you have people, according to the podcaster himself, it's basically people like Mark Zasky has come up, but also followers of Scott Carpenter and Melba Ketchum and David Paulides and these guys. Steve Isdall, if he's still active. I haven't heard his name in a bit. I don't know if he's still on the radar or not, but basically an organized effort to utilize the algorithms of social platforms to censor and shut up the people that are basically calling bullshit on their bullshit. And this is not a good trend. Because they're kind of like gaming the system to get their way. And that if you have to do that to have your message come across, then that would seem to indicate a problem with your message and the nature thereof. So in the new year, as I encounter bullshit, it's going to be called out. I mean, I do that now, but I mean, I think there needs to be a louder resistance to the Zorths and the Matthew Johnsons and the Todd Standings and the Carpenter, Isdall, Paulides, Ketchum cabal. Not to mention, the stalwart porcupine researcher Chris Noel, because there's a guy out there that just gets a kick whenever I give him a plug for his fascinating contributions to porcupine research, because his baby Bigfoot was a porcupine after all. I actually wonder, speaking of calling out bullshit, a while back Chris Noel was basically going to go march on Washington with 500,000 people or some shit and get force Congress to recognize Bigfoot and his plight. And then you never heard anything about it. I'm guessing that Chris never did that. Big surprise. Or maybe he did and they gave him a cookie and he went home. But I'm willing to bet he probably didn't gain a whole lot of traction with that, just because, I'm sorry, but the mainstream of society does not take the subject seriously. And as long as these bullshit pushers are pushing their bullshit, they're not going to. They're in the way. They are the white noise. And we need to be the sound filter that filters them out. So I walk through thorns and rip myself to crap. But that is a necessary thing that needs to be done. And in the new year, aside from trying to get more... I mean, right now, it's quiet, so I can't really do that. But I mean, we can get out and set up trail cams and that kind of thing. And I may reach out and try to do some recruiting for Nezra/Nezin. Now Nezin. Nezin's the name we're going by. That's not changing, but I kind of just want to drive home the continuity of the legacy, because the people that tried to claim the mantle abandoned it and dropped the ball. So I guess what I'm saying is, in my mind, they lose the rights to it. And I'm claiming them because I was there. And I was, again, the last elected member of the membership of that group. And that never really actually changed. The cabal didn't represent the membership. But I'm done beating on that horse for now. We'll see if that domain name is available, and if it is, I'm going to claim it and point it at the database. And that will be something they will have to just accept. But yeah, this like organized censorship drive thing is not, it's not cool. And every now and then you'll see it, but this was the first time I actually saw it on Facebook, where you saw organized kooks trying to take down those who are trying to point out the nonsensical nature of their storyline and their narrative. And to listen to these people, I can guarantee you every single one of them is a card-carrying conspiracy theorist. Just the way their banter reads. And that is the last thing this subject needs to drive it forward. We need to take it back from that. And I wrote a piece years ago about the culture war in Bigfooting, and it's kind of what it is. But I am going to wrap this one up here, walking through this fascinating little stretch of woods parallel to some mountain laurel. We're going to call this one in the books. Like, subscribe, comment, leave nasty comments if I called you out or whatever. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed what you saw. Thanks. Bye.